Hey everybody, how are you guys doing? I wanted to show you guys my reef. I think this is the first time I've showed it on YouTube before. It's a little bit different than a lot of reefs out there. So I'll start off by saying this is mostly recycled material. You know, the whole tank is an IBC tote, a food grade IBC tote. I've raised fish in them for years and they work. It's sawed off. The rest of it is submersible pumps. I have no power heads in here. I have submersible pumps. And I don't lose fish. I don't lose coral. I've had zero problems, knock on wood. So here's how it works. I actually have two lights. One is a Viper Spectra. Let's see. V300. It's a 300 watt, and it's pink, as you can see. Some people use it for other things. I use it for growing algae. And then I have this other Viper Spectra right here. It's a 170 watt, and it is an actual blue LED. So all my corals are on this side, and then I like to watch the fish over here. It's pretty much a fish only side over here. I have a lot of fish in this tank. I have a humu triggerfish right here. Come here. Come here. Whoa, don't bite me. I have this Jardini tang, however you say it. That guy was actually a rescue. He was beat up when I got him, and the guy was like, I'll give him to you because I don't think he'll survive. And he did. He grew back in about a month. All of his fins grew back. He's the only tang in the tank, and he owns it. I also have, this is the first fish I got in this tank, the copper band butterfly. So anybody who tells you that they're hard to keep, this guy was in here about 2 weeks after the tank was set up. So it just depends on the specimen. I also have some ultra maroon clowns. I think they're ultra maroons. That's the female right there. The male's running around. I've got tons of chromis. I'm a huge chromis fan and damsel fan. I like seeing them in big tanks because they really do better. They're less mean, and they behave. They behave with other fish, which they don't seem to do in the smaller, 50-gallon cubes and stuff where they usually are. So lots of different ones. I also have something that's a big no-no in reef tanks, and that's this guy right there, the chocolate chip starfish. And he really doesn't mess with anything. He cleans the bad stuff off the rocks, and that's about it. I've had him munch on a coral one time. See, there's a little green dot right there. He takes a liking to mushrooms, but that's fine. He never touches my expensive corals. He really only touches the bargain bin ones, if he does touch any at all. But the whole reason for this tank, and the reason that there's pink lights, is because of these guys right here. The algae. So the macroalgae, I have tons of different kinds of macroalgae in the sump, and the refugium, and the other refugium, and third refugium. I have lots of refugiums. And I really believe that macroalgae is one of the best filters out there. Another thing that I really don't think anyone does this, is using oysters and mussels and clams, A, as food, but B, to filter your water. And in my opinion, it works. I've used it in aquaponic systems, I've used it in smaller saltwater systems, and I've run no filters for 2 years with minimal water changes, if any water changes at all, by just having bivalves do their job. And they love nitrogen. Like, people who raise oysters and clams and stuff, they add nitrogen fertilizer to the tank. So that's what these guys do, and then the oysters eat it. So it's a nice little ecosystem. So let me show you my sump. It actually flows down from here into this guy, which is an overflow box. I don't really know the type of overflow that this is, but basically there's sand here, there's a standpipe here, there's a bubbler, a limestone bubbler that goes down into the tank that creates a bunch of micro bubbles. I'm a big fan of bubble scrubbing. It's a controversial topic as well. But the other cool thing about this is there's a layer of gravel around this in a hole, so the water actually sinks through and filters like a sand filter down through the tank, or down through the pipe. It then goes into my sump, where we've got more macroalgae and live rock, and let's see if he'll come out. Where'd you go? This guy. A green spotted pufferfish. If you don't have green spotted pufferfish in your reef tank, you're missing out, because they're so fun. I have a couple more damsels in here. I'm actually breeding damsels in this tank, and the green spot pufferfish is not helping with that. But anyway, this is about a 30-gallon sump. It's literally just an old wooden fish tank from probably the 80s, and it works, and it's been refurbished, and that's basically all it is. It kind of just runs water naturally through the sump. I've got some oysters in there and some other invertebrates to help clean stuff up. And then it gets pumped back through this pump right here, which is just a cheap Amazon pump. It works. It actually works too well. I consistently get overflows in my tank because this thing is too powerful, which is not cool. But anyway, I also have this. This was my first sump, and I found this. I think CJ on YouTube made a video about this a few years ago. Maybe New York Stilo, one of those guys, made a video a few years ago about these breeder boxes, and I was intrigued. So the water comes in right here, and then comes down. You got tons of macroalgae in here. You got a somewhat deep sand bed. I've got marine pure right here, live rock, and then lava rocks, and they are real lava rocks, not the plastic ones that people have problems with. I then have tons of Kato, tons of sea lettuce, tons of little oysters and mussels. Like, these were tons of babies are in here. They're all actually inside there. Then I have some mangroves, and I have a little pink line on it. Then I also, the only real filtration in this tank is a backpack 2R with some marine pure in it, and some live rock, and some mangroves. And people come over and they look at this tank, and they have this big huge skimmer on their tank, and they're like, how do you have a 200-gallon system and you're running a skimmer that's rated for like a 60-gallon system? And I tell them there's a lot more ways to filter your tank than a skimmer, but the skimmer does work. I don't deny that. On the other side here, I have the auto top-off RODI system right here. It's a 6-stage right here. I actually recycle all the wastewater. It goes to a banana tree or my farm that I have. I don't like wasting water, which is a big thing in the saltwater hobby. So this tank has had maybe a 1 to 2% water change one time in its lifetime. I don't believe in water changes. I think it's a waste of water. If you have the right materials and the correct balanced ecosystem, there's no reason to do a water change. Or if you do, you do it this way, and this is what I'm about to show. So I have a big barrel right here, and anytime I change water, which is very rarely, it goes into this barrel, and it actually gets circulated around by this pump, and there's macroalgae in there, and there's limestone, and there's about a foot of sand at the bottom. You can't really see it because it actually it kicks up the sand a ton, so it's doing its job. It's doing. There's a lot of tons of invertebrates and oysters and all kinds of clams in there. So they do some work. I've never lost anything in this tank. The salt kind of fluctuates, and I only top it off with fresh water and then mix a little salt in there. So this is just when I do need to top off, or the salinity drops a little bit. We take it from the water saver right here, the recycler as I call it. And I think it works. Like I said, I really don't do water changes, and I haven't done them at all. I've poured water out into the drain, like I said, maybe 5 gallon, maybe a 5-gallon bucket. That's about it. And then whatever is overflowed when the tank has overflowed. But other than that, I love this ecosystem. It really works. It's somewhat cost effective. The lights aren't too expensive. The pumps and the power consumption really isn't there. And the water cost is nothing. I mean, the only time that I add salt is when the salinity drops, and most of that's recycled salt anyway. If you know what you're doing, I wholeheartedly believe you don't have to do water changes unless you see some problems in your tank. And a little bit of green algae on the side is not a problem to me. There's a little bit of diatom, but that's mostly caused by this bright pink light. But anyway, that's about it. See ya.